We are at the Middle Tennessee Anime Convention, MTAC 2014. We are here with Eric Stuart. Eric, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today, and welcome back to MTAC.
Thank you, my hometown con.
Just to start us off, what are some projects that you're working on that you're able to talk about?
I just did a two-part episode for Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal as a character called Jinlan, sort of a shaman, older shaman, which was kind of cool. And I'm also doing a lot of audiobook stuff. I'm just finishing up an audiobook where I get to play Elvis, which is kind of a cool thing for me since I'm such a big Elvis fan. I also do a lot of original content things. Of course, those are the things I can't really talk about because they're all in development, but
Sure.
That's kind of more of where I'm leaning towards in terms of the voice acting part, because it's great to do all the dubbing, but I like to also work on original new material.
Of course. How about with your band?
The band, we just have our sixth album was released in June, and we just shot our first music video. You can see all that stuff on ericstewart.com. That was really cool because it was also fan-funded, both the album and the video. And I would say that probably 75% of the fan base that stepped up for the Kickstarter were my anime peeps, which I appreciate a lot, especially because I want to introduce my anime fans to my music so they can see the other side of who I am. And it's great that they actually like it, even though I'm not singing the theme to Pokemon. But it's so it's very humbling that the anime fans would do something like that, and we finally got to shoot a very professional music video, so it was cool.
I was just going to ask, what was it that led you to performing?
In seventh or eighth, no, I think it was eighth grade in school, I went to a very progressive school in Brooklyn called St. Anne's, where we didn't have grades. It was one big building with all the students. If you were really smart in math and you were in sixth grade, you might be put in the 11th grade math class. So it was all really just a cool environment. And one of the things we had was a music class that had maybe 10 kids in it. And, we're eighth grade boys, well, most of us in that class. And our teacher was this really cool sort of burnt out hippie. And long before School of Rock came out, right? This is years before that, because I'm as old as dirt. This was School of Rock. He said to us, I can't really teach you guys, like you guys are not paying attention to any of this stuff. So let's form a rock band. Who wants to play, what do you want to play? Nick. And Nick's like, I kind of like drums. You're the drummer. And what do you want to do, Tim? I'm going to play bass. I like bass. You're going to be bass. So they got to me, and I had once played a guitar that had like 2 or 3 strings on it and strummed it. And I said, of course, I was a big Buddy Holly fan and Elvis and all that stuff. I was like, I want to play guitar. So I was a guitar player. And it went around the room and we had a 5-piece or 6-piece band. And we learned one instrumental song. And then we got to play it for the school assembly. I didn't sing. I was in the background playing my guitar, and the audience response, the big cheer, to have the whole school cheer for you as in 8th grade, was like, okay, I think that's what I want to do. I want to entertain. And I love to do the dubbing. I love to do the studio work, because it's obviously something that has been part of my career for a long time. But what I miss about, which I don't get from dubbing, is the immediate crowd reaction. So coming to the conventions and meeting fans where they say, that's my favorite line, or this made me laugh, or, you got me through these tough times. I don't get that when I'm locked in a booth. But when I sing songs for people and I perform for them and they cheer for that song, or they come up to me afterwards and say, oh man, that song that you sang, I've been through that. That's the magic to me of being a performer. That's what I don't get by being in the booth.
Who would you say has had the biggest impact on you in your acting career, and then who's had the biggest impact on you in your music career?
Acting-wise, there are definitely people that I borrow from. I won't say steal, but borrow from, because they either made me laugh, or they were great dramatic actors. But it's little pieces here and there. I never went out into my career path with, I want to be an actor. That's not what I grew up on. I wanted to be a musician. That's what I wanted to do, or be an entertainer. Acting was part of being an entertainer. So, there was never like, I want to be Cary Grant, or I want, man, Robin Williams is my idol. I want to be as funny as Robin Williams. But they're all pieces of things that have steered me. Favorite actors of mine are guys like Jimmy Stewart and things like that, or even like Marlon Brando, Tough Guys, and things like that. But there's never, and then, De Niro, Pacino, those kinds of magical, character actors. But there's never been like, I want to be like him. Where with music, I would say, as a kid, my mom gave me this sort of AM radio for my room when I was really little, and it got like 2 stations, and one of the stations was the oldies station in New York, and it played just like music of the 50s and the 60s, and so I was listening to the Everly Brothers and Elvis and then Buddy Holly, and once I heard Buddy Holly, that was sort of like, okay, this is my what I want to be doing. So he was my first hero. And then as I got older, it became, I just saw Springsteen the other night at Bridgestone, and I've seen Springsteen a million times in the Jersey area. And you watch something like his crowd control of steering that whole night. That's someone that is a huge influence of mine. I take notes every time I see him play. So I would have to say it's probably the boss.
As a musician who appreciates art, music history and things like that, obviously, do you purchase MP3s, iTunes, Amazon, or do you still go to a record store, pick up a classic vinyl, and have a vinyl record player?
I still have all of my old LPs myself, and I have 2 record players. I don't play them anymore. I don't even download. I'm a CD buyer in a store, and I'm an album buyer. I spend a lot of time myself sequencing my records, even though I know people pick and choose and make their own playlists, which is fine. That's part of what it is. That goes back to much more old school of the 45. That is the single. That's, single-driven industry of here's your single, and the flip side is maybe another album cut that someone goes, oh, that's different, right? That maybe then would drive you to buy the record. So that's kind of the idea of what iTunes has become. But I want to hear what the artist was trying to give us in a journey. But they don't do that anymore so much because the record labels know that the first couple of songs need to be that it's the singles and that's it. Maybe you listen to the rest of the record. But I'm old school. I want to hear that, and I listen to records that way. I must have played Back in Black 5,000 times. I played it last night too, just because someone said, "Oh, I like AC/DC," so I put it on, and I didn't go and skip songs. I was like, "We're going to play it from Hell's Bells, and we're going to keep going." Because that's the way that record needs to be played. Even though I know what you want to hear. You want the 4th song, or you want to hear You Shook Me All Night Long, you're going to have to listen through Hell's Bells. Because it's a record. So, yeah.
So when you're sequencing tracks, what's in your mind? What are you trying to get across? Is that you have like a theme in mind? Is there an emotional response? Is there an actual story? What do you have a formula or a process?
Yeah, I think I use the record to me is what I would do live. The journey I would take you on of grabbing you. A lot of times, it's funny. The opening song needs to just basically give you the energy. If you open strong like that and you say, if you don't know who we are, you're digesting just like the simplicity of that's the bass player, that's the guitar player. Okay, this is the kind of groove that they're doing. You're not even listening to any lyrics, right? You're just sort of digesting it. And then somewhere in the middle, you got them. You want to bring them in, something intimate, stuff like that. And that's kind of how I do the record, is that I don't want to stack the first 10 songs all up-tempo, single-driven, and then save the deeper, darker things towards the end, thinking you're not going to go there. And that's the concert. That's what you want to see. And then there's times where you do the opposite. I've opened shows solo acoustic and then brought the band out after. It depends on what the audience is. That's kind of a neat way of the slow burn, bringing And I've always thought about doing a record like that too, where it starts quiet and then does a crescendo. So, I mean, that's why, to me, that's an art. I mean, there's some Zeppelin albums where the songs are cut together, and the radio stations never play them separately because they have to be played back to back. And I like that because someone made a choice that's how we heard it on the record in the sequence. That's how it has to be played. So I can't split them up.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So when you're playing, do you try to read the crowd, and will you change your track list or your
Yep.
set list as you're going?
Yep, I make the set list of what I think is going to work, and I see where the crowd is, the vibe, the energy. If we just played an up-tempo song and they're up dancing, it's not time to go to that next slower song. Let's flip some songs, and the band knows that I might do that. The band knows I might cut a song, and the band knows that I also might throw in another one. But what's great is, especially for me, I've been lucky, is that whatever format my band has been in, whichever players I'm working with, these people are consistently playing my music. So they have at least 25 of my songs under their belt. So if we have a set of 10, 12 songs, and I decide while we're on stage, you know what, let's play this instead, it's something we've been playing. So it's not like I don't know that one. So because I've been playing with the same players enough, you can do that. And also, I don't play with like hired guns that just step in, because even the kind of music I play is simple sounding, but is more complicated in arrangement than what's sort of cookie cutter expected. So you have to sort of have your regular band. Yeah.
So with a couple bands recently, Coheed, Cambria, Gerard Way, doing more concept-driven releases of music. Have you ever thought about doing that, where maybe there's a comic or there's a story you're telling
Right.
that maybe won't work live because concepts don't generally get played live?
Yeah, well, I mean, especially with the whole anime stuff, that whole side of my career, I definitely have been approached of like, oh, you should do something where it's like, something that's in Yu-Gi-Oh, something like that, or, I don't even write that way. I don't know what I'm going to be writing about until I sit down and start playing guitar. I sometimes have a title in mind, but rarely. I rarely do. I sing nonsense syllables to the feel of what I'm playing, come up with a melody with nonsense syllables, and then slowly words start to form. And once those first couple of words start to form, they guide me into the rest of the song. I might come up with the chorus first. I might come up with that opening line, but I don't sit down and say I'm going to write a song about a guy who's on a journey, and then that would be too. I feel the pressure of it. Maybe if I took my 6 albums that I have now, like Green Day did, and took an album and turned it into a Broadway show, you could take my existing songs and turn it into a story, and link them together. You could make them make sense, especially because I don't really write about many other things besides relationships, one way or the other. So, and it doesn't always have to be like a love thing. It could be father and son, whatever it is. You could easily, I'm not singing about such obscure things that it would be like, wait a second, he's been doing this and then he's singing about space. You know what I mean? Like we're not time travel. How did that fit into our story? So, but that would be a good idea. A rock opera. I mean, I love Tommy. Tommy's a great,
Was there a moment in your journey that you felt like maybe it wasn't going to work out for you, like you're going to do something other than perform for the rest of your life?
No, my goal has always been that one thing, and I've always found other ways to make money or do things if the acting stuff or whatever, if that's not pulling in the money. I've been a tennis pro, I've worked landscaping, I've done construction, I've done those things to supplement always being able to take the music gig that would be a good thing to experience more than the pay. I've never played in a cover band, I've never played in a wedding band, and I've got nothing against that, but music has never been my job. So it's never been like something that I would not want to get up in the morning and do. I've had those jobs. I've worked even in the studio, being a staff studio person. That's a job. And I'm going into work at 10 o'clock doing this, but I never wanted that to be part of my music career. So I never looked at it as I'm going to have to give this up because it's not going to happen for me. Even if I only played music to a small little crowd of friends every once in a while, that's still, to me, this being successful. I'm still a musician. There's no such thing as an ex-musician. It's like an ex-Marine.
It's a way of life.
Yeah, exactly. It's so just because I have to travel with my guitar, even if I don't have a gig, because I need to play. Even if it's in my room just noodling around, I have to play. So, to put the pressure of success as being the pot of gold, it's not. To me, success is the journey, is experiencing that with what you're doing with your life and enjoying it. I mean, it would be great to make a ton of money playing music, but I'd much rather have everybody in this room know at least one of my songs and say, oh yeah, you're a great songwriter. I love your music. Or, yeah, my dad plays your stuff all the time. Or I just learned your song. That to me is more of the success than I sold 100,000 copies. But I would love to sell 100,000 copies of my album.
So what you're saying is you're going to come put a free show on Huntsville for me, right? So I can make songs.
There you go. Well, we play even in Nashville. I mean, and that's what's so interesting about this town is there is so much great music, and it's so easy to see great music that sometimes people take that for granted from club owners and things like that. It's very hard to make money in this town, especially if you only play original music. We have a couple of venues that let us play original music, even Puckett's. We do Puckett's all the time, and they'll be like, we're the only band on, and we play an hour and a half of all original music. Now, that's completely rare. You get an entire restaurant full of people that don't know who you are, don't know your material, and if they stay in those seats for 2 hours, the club, the manager of the restaurant will come up to us and say, you guys are like one of the best original bands ever. Nobody stays for music they don't know. You don't play anybody else's. You just play your own stuff, and they stay in the seats through dinner and and then we play taps every other Wednesday night, and that's a great show because it's free. And it's good food and it's good fun. It's kind of our little home away from home. But this town is tough that way because you would hope that they would say, we'll go out and see music, we'll pay for music, but that's not what happens here. So, for Music City, it's not really the best place to be a musician.
It sounds like you have a love for music and a passion for anything that you do. When you find yourself away from your mainstays, have you ever found, whether voice acting or music, have you ever found, wow, that radio station, even though it may be a college station or a local station that goes, hey, we pick up your stuff, do you ever find that someone has picked up your music or you've heard yourself speaking somewhere else and you're like, I would have never known how in the world did this stuff get out here? Have you ever been in a spot like that?
Well, I mean, I've heard, sometimes I've done commercials and they sit on them for a little while and then things air and you go, oh yeah, that's my spot. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely happened before. And actually a very funny story was, my father-in-law was watching television in New Jersey, and I came on the television as a voiceover, and he yells out to his wife, "Is Eric here? What? And of course I'm in Nashville, so that's kind of cool. But I don't really listen to a lot of radio, and I don't really listen. I'm not looking for that stuff, but every once in a while, someone will say, hey, I heard you on, and then I'll go and check out a local station, like an internet station, and go, oh, look, I'm on their playlist. That's kind of neat. Plus, I have a distribution deal with a company, so they track where things play.
Right.
And where things are downloaded and things like that. So I check that also because if you're smart, you look at what parts of the country or what parts of the world you're getting your downloads and your plays, and that's where you go and play your concerts.
Right.
You follow where you're getting the airplay. So, No, I haven't had too many of those experiences. I wish that more times that I turned on the radio and heard something of my own. That would be nice, both voiceover or with music. That's a good question.
What's the last band or musician that surprised you? Either you saw them live, heard them somewhere, you're like, oh, holy crap, that's just incredible.
That's a tough one. I'm a very bad person to go see new music with because I have a hard time. If it's too close to my genre, I can't stop picking things apart. So I like to go and listen to things that have nothing to do with what I do so I can just relax and enjoy the performance. Music-wise, give me a second to think about that, but I will tell you actor-wise, things like that surprised me. I was never a big Matthew McConaughey fan at all. Until I saw Dallas Buyers Club. And then I was wrong. It was just great. It was hands down one of the best. Those kinds of not right for everything, but that movie just blew me away. But music-wise, I'm trying to think of a new band or something that I've gone like, who is that? You know what? There was a song. I'm trying to remember the name of the band. It's how bad I am about this. There was like a Chase Bank commercial with a big mountain shot. Somebody left the door open. Right?
Couldn't tell you the name.
I had to quickly push my sound, whatever it's called.
Shazam, yeah.
Shazam. And I looked it up, and I think they're called like the LPs or something like that. And I looked up the video, and I watched the live thing, and seeing the woman that's the lead singer and the whole weird band that's there, that was surprisingly very cool. I was like, I've got to dig deeper into finding some more tracks from this band. That was cool. But it's hard because nothing is new. Even what I do, nothing is new. So if I'm listening to things that are coming out in pop radio, things like that, and they remind me too much of what they borrowed from, I like the song, but I'm not going to go and buy the album. I'd much rather go and buy a new album from an artist that I've been listening to for a long time. Ones that I've been, I will buy, Bruce's record no matter if it's good or bad, just to hear it, the way he's done. Or like even Annie Lennox, like something from, like, what is she doing? But these are older bands, I hope my fans do the same thing. It's like, well, I liked his first record, don't really like his second. Oh, but I'll go get his third and see what he's doing next. I do that with the artists that I grew up with. I want to see what they're, keep being a fan and still looking for some new music too.
Have you ever just been completely disappointed in the direction an artist has gone and what their music has evolved into?
Yeah, I have a problem with, I don't want to like name names, but there's definitely things that are disappointing. And I know a lot of times that it has a lot to do with the way the record label and the business works and the direction, because you have a committee. And the joke is a camel is a horse designed by a committee. And when you have everybody's opinion like that, it gets so watered down that you don't have a true direction. And sometimes what happens is that single is released because everyone's had their say, and the rest of the album doesn't sound that way, and that's not even what the artist wants to be doing. I'll give you an example. Julian Lennon. Remember Julian Lennon when he came out with his first record? The record companies decided, which was a smart marketing thing, to basically make him his father. The style of the music, even his look. That's not the music that Julian Lennon wanted to play. Julian Lennon's second album is like David Bowie. It's cool. It's dark. It didn't sell because they had marketed him one way and gotten that bump in with the fans and then followed up with something that was completely different. Or even look at Extreme, right? More Than Words. There's no other song that they do that's even like that. They're a heavy rock band. Yes, that was a great song, but you run the risk of, like, if you listen to the record label and that's what you're doing, well then, is every song going to be the two of you guys just playing guitar together? Or are you going to rock? Their old fans are like, what is this? I can't listen to this anymore. So, in terms of being disappointed, you also got to give that artist, if the artist is in control, a little bit of slack and see maybe where they're going to go next. And we've all had bad records. We've all done songs that we go, why did I put that on that record?
Outside of music and acting, do you have any other hobbies or interests?
I used to play a lot of tennis until I had my shoulder surgery, which was from years of playing too much tennis. I played a lot of soccer too as a kid. I mean, I like sport. I'm a big football fan. I'm a big New York Jets fan, which is a painful thing.
My apologies.
I know. It's a bad experience for many, many years. But I'll actually watch any pro football game. I've got Sunday Ticket. I have it on my phone. I watch games all the time. And what's great is it's just Sundays or Mondays or Thursday nights. Sometimes it's Friday night game. So yeah, it's pretty much 5 days a week. But in terms of like the other things that I do, I mean, I'm also kind of handy. My wife's an interior designer, so that means that I have a honey-do list, which will be like, it would be great if we had crown molding. So it's like, how do you do crown molding? And then I'll go get the saws and stuff like that and do the crown molding. And then it'll be like, well, we need some tile work done in the bathroom. Okay, let me get my wet saw and I'll figure out how to do tiling. So I kind of like that stuff where I don't like plumbing because nobody can see that, and also or like electrical work in the walls. Nobody's seeing that. It's like I'd much rather go, look at this table I built. Oh, that's nice. So that's good. I like to work with my hands. My dad had a shop. My stepfather had a shop in the house, and I like that kind of. I like tools. I like it's the same thing. I've got guitars, amps, hammers, and saws. So they're all related.
Do you enjoy figuring out how to do something for yourself? Like, I don't exactly know how this goes together, but I'm going to make it work. And
always. Even if I'm not going to do the job, I want to know how it's done so that I can even supervise the job. I mean, that's just the way my personality is. I'm in charge. Being a director, I'm in charge of production. Being the head of a band, I've got my team there. I won't say I'm a control freak, but I do know that I want it done right. So if I'm hiring an expert to do it, I should at least know the steps so that I can say, hey, I thought you needed to do that when you're doing. I remember I had a guy do some brickwork for me in a back patio, and I said, why aren't you laying down any the weed guard stuff to prevent it? And he goes, oh, we don't need that. I said, yeah, you do, because in about 2-3 weeks, I'm going to get grass growing through my brick, and I need that. And he was like, oh yeah, you're right, we should do that. And then I had a roofer come and do something, and I said, and I couldn't get up there, and I was like, oh, I want you to fix the chimney flashing. Take a picture of it first for me before you do it. And on digital, okay. And then take a picture for me when you're done. And I said, before you did it though, I said, I want to make sure that you cut into the brickwork here and the flashing does that. And then he goes, you know more than my assistants do about roofing. And I said, yeah, because I've read about it. I know what to ask for. So I like to know that process. Even when I learned Pro Tools for the first time, I went online and watched video after video to just sit there. And of course, my wife's like, what are you watching on YouTube? And I'm like, I'm actually going to school. So, I watched it for a week and I took my notes to learn how to do that. Yeah. I mean, that's fun,
So in the world of anime, since you've been in several,
yep.
Ask Dan Green, I'm going to ask you.
Yep.
If Seto, Kaiba and Yugi are going in drag, who do you think looks better?
Well, Yugi's got the cooler hair for that. Because right there, he's almost looks like he could have women's hair, right? But I think if you look at Kaiba's outfits with the long flowing coats and stuff like that, because it could easily be turned into a dress.
Did you ever pretend to be David Bowie while doing Kaiba?
No, I think that when doing James, I was more Tim Curry.
I can see that. Except
my real motivation for James, because everyone always asks about his lifestyle, which is not important. I said, no. What I do with James is that prep school kid that I knew growing up, that very silver spoon type child. But he's related to the Crane brothers. There's Niles, there's Fraser, and there's James. It's that same affectation. That whole, the way that they all speak, as if they're British, but they're not. It's just all of those prep school boys that I had to beat up in high school.
Just had to.
You know?
Speaking of Seto Kaiba, what's the story behind the role? How were you approached to do it? Did you find out? What's the
I was, before 4Kids did all of the recordings in-house, and they were just the licensing and they owned the shows. They would farm out the recording to other studios. So one of the other studios, where I was recording Pokemon and stuff like that, I also was directing some of the other actors on Pokemon and directing myself. I kind of worked it out because I wanted to have my days free so that I could run around to auditions and things like that. That I said, I'll do Pokemon from 6 to 10. And nobody wanted to work that late except for the engineer. So I said, well, then I'll just direct myself. So I would go in late after a day of auditions and then just dub. But because I was directing and also I had been working in studio as a director, when the time came for them to do in-house production, they looked at their short list and said, okay, well, Eric is a director and he's been working for us freelance through that other studio. That studio hired me freelance. I didn't work for them. Let's see if he's interested. And I was like, oh, okay. I'll definitely take a staff job being your senior voice director, but the parameters are, it was really cool because my boss is an amazing guy. The deal was I needed to be able to make my own schedule so that I could run around and do auditions during the day and leave the studio when I needed to. I also needed to be able to go out of town here and there when I needed to do music things. And the deal was, as long as the work gets done on time, I don't care what you do. I didn't punch a clock. So, there'd be times I'd direct for 2 hours and then I'd run out for 4 hours and go do a bunch of commercials and then come back and direct for a couple hours. But my shows always came in on schedule. I came in under budget. And it was kind of funny because the budget people would always say, now how come your show is only taking 18 hours and their show's taking 35 hours to get? I'm like, talk to the producer. It's not my problem. But going back to your question, so they brought me in and they said, we want you to direct our new show, Yu-Gi-Oh! So they showed me the first episode and they had already done some casting. It hadn't been recorded yet, but they showed me the first episode. I'm watching it and I said, so this is kind of like Pokemon 90210. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, this is for everyone that's a little too old for Pokemon and they need that next thing. I mean, you still got the characters that someone can relate to 1, 2, 3. It doesn't have to be this guy. I'm more like Joey, whatever. It's the same camaraderie, but we're dealing with a little bit more, mature subjects without being really mature. And they're like, yeah. And we're almost done with the casting. So I helped them finish up the casting. And of course, Kaiba's in the first episode. They said, but the one character we haven't cast yet is Kaiba. Now, I'm also voicing other shows there. And I've been hired as the staff director, as the senior director for this show. So it would be kind of obnoxious to suggest myself. So I didn't. I said, I already have a lot of work going on. I don't need to take this role. I'll just direct whoever it's going to be. Well, we went through so many auditions. My producer had this idea in his head. And I respect that. He was waiting to hear something, and he was not hearing it. And we went through so many guys trying out for this role. And finally, because this is a network show, we're already advertising, it's going to be on the air, the toys are being made, the cards are out. We're in the 11th hour, and I finally said, listen, I hate to say this. And he was a producer that I had never worked for as an actor. He knew I was a voice actor, but he had never worked on any of those other shows. I said, I really should play this role. And he said, really? I said, I dealing with this for the last month of what your feedback is, what you want vocally, and the sarcasm you want. I said, I should be playing this character. And he said, all right, tell you what, you dub it and let's see how it sounds. And if it works, then we'll use it. And I said, okay. Dubbed like a part of the show. So I jumped in there and dubbed like the first 10 minutes or whatever. And he was like, yes, exactly. That's exactly what I've been waiting to hear. Right? And I was like, yeah, that would have saved me a month's worth of all of this casting and the stuff. We could have had the show in the can and I could have been on a beach somewhere. But no. So that's kind of how that developed, just by accident almost. And now after playing him for so long, it's just so funny because even the writers, it's almost like they knew me well enough to give me some of those biting comments that easily could have come out of my mouth. Because believe it or not, I am very sarcastic.
I know.
No. But I'm not as mean as he can be. I do have a temper, but I'm not as mean as he can be. So,
Having been a director and a voice actor, do you find that that experience now, if you're being directed, does that make you more sympathetic with the person directing you, or in the back of your mind are you second guessing that person, like, you're making some poor choices here. I should be directing myself.
well, that's a good question because I was just talking about that in a panel. My biggest problem is I have a problem with incompetence. I don't have a problem with people who are trying hard and want to learn and stuff like that, but those that are given roles where they don't deserve that job yet. They're not ready for it yet. And maybe they got that job for other reasons. And I've been in situations where I've been directed by people who should not be a director. That doesn't mean they're not good people, but they should not be a director. But it's still my job, so I have to listen to them. Now, if it's for a company that I'm also a fellow director, most of the directors that worked at 4Kids trained under me. I trained all of them. And then they were my assistant director, and then they took on their own shows. That's how it worked there. And that's why I worked on so many shows, because I would do the first season, turn it over to, and then do the next first season of the next show, and that's how it worked. But in terms of my own idea, if you're a smart actor, you listen to the director, even if it's a bad idea, and you do it the way that they're asking, and you can get a bunch of takes that way. And to do, and especially with music, we can make it an entertaining night, so why not use what I've been given to help out people. So.
Anybody else?
I want to
Anybody?
hear you talk like Seto Kaiba. I'm sorry, you sound so different.
You want to hear me play my Blue Eyes White Dragon? But I heard you talk to Yugi before. Did he tell you how he cheats and pulls cards out of... Yeah. No, but honestly, if you were to be any character in that show, I mean, first season, Seto Kaiba, with all his toys, I mean, he's the Tony Stark of anime. He's not using it for evil.
Comparatively.
No, I want to give you this other. This is the analogy that I use for their relationship. That's Rocky and Apollo Creed. Apollo Creed pushes the champ to be the champ. Without that sparring partner, the champ is not at the top of his game. He can just relax, sit back, be mediocre. As we learned later in the Egyptian side of it, Kaiba is his lieutenant. And that's what that dynamic is. So me needling him and pushing him made him the king of games. And that's their relationship. So, he's got an anger issue and things like that, but I don't think he's evil. He's, and because he's very protective of his brother, he's got some humanity to him. There are villains in that show. I don't ever think of Kaiba as a villain. I think of him as a arch rival.
Yes.
So he's the most important character, is what you're saying.
Well, but I mean, I think that what he represents is one of the most important characters in that kind of a storyline. Even if you see a Superman, or those guys stand alone and fight villains, right? But who's their partner? Who's their person that makes them better? There is no character like that in those shows. But with Yu-Gi-Oh and things, and Rocky, and I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things like that where there's that, even in Archie and comics, right? Reggie, right?
Yeah.
He's not he's annoying, but that just makes Archie look better, right?
So does that mean much like Rocky 7? When Apollo and Rocky are going at it today, we're going to see Yugi and Kaiba going at it? I mean, granted, they may never remember the cards they're playing.
Well, you look at towards the end, those two guys were buddies. They didn't start as buddies, but they were buddies. I think it would be, we teamed up, Yugi and Kaiba teamed up for a couple things here and there when they need to. But I think that would be kind of neat if, like, the next installment was using those first season characters, and there's that sort of Batman and Robin kind of thing where they are a team working together to do something. That'd be neat, because I really think that they truly are. They are buddies.
So we asked Dave Green, we asked him if he had remembered anything having to do with the cards Do you remember any Yu-Gi-Oh cards? Could you actually competently play a children's card game?
I don't know how to play the game at all.
I feel like it's very honest.
I do. What the knowledge that I had from the game was because I was directing the show, I had to keep track of the continuity of, that's not this, wait a second, that's not what we called this before. We also had a game person that was checking the rules for us, to help the writers. So that's the part of the game that I understood. And also acting it, having to say some of those card names and what I was doing with them. But I had no idea. And that goes back to what I'm talking about acting, is that if you can talk about it and replace what you do know in the format of what you don't know. So, all right, I play sports. I know about winning and losing. I know about the defeat of what that should feel like. So I could read these card moves with, I'm going to hit a forehand at you. Oh, and you hit a drop shot. Oh, man. It's this, as silly as that sounds, that's the dynamic. Put your own nouns in there. It's all the same stuff, but no, I can't play that. Can't play Pokemon. I am a gamer. I'm a video gamer. And I'm a pretty good gamer. And I've got a lot of gaming systems and all that sort of stuff, but I'm much more into things that blow up and I can shoot them. So that's
So you're just looking for that Yu-Gi-Oh first-person shooter.
Yeah, well, actually, but it would have to be like 4-player co-op because I actually play with the same 4 guys every Wednesday night for the last 8 years.
Wow. Is Dan on that list?
Wow. No, Dan used to join. The pack was bigger, but the core 4 were always the same. Dan had joined us. He joined us back in the day, but now, actually, do you know Mark Thompson, he plays a lot of roles on some important shows. Mark is one of the guys there. One of the engineers is there, and then Tony Salerno, who played Chaz in GX, and also it directs a lot of stuff, is one of the guys. But we only play games that are 4-player co-op through the missions. We're not allowed to play that game any other night by ourselves, so that someone could go, all right, what we got to do here, so they ruin it for anyone, and we all have to vote on what game we're going to buy, so that when we invest our $60, we're not just buying, we're all grown men now. It's not like we can be like, look, honey, I came home with 65 new games for my Xbox. We're like, what? But so we make that investment, and if you're only playing Wednesday nights, and you're only playing, a couple hours each time, that one game lasts for about 3 months.
So what's your favorite game to play, either co-op or just favorite game at all?
We're finishing up Borderlands 2 right now. That was a good one. We play all the Graw stuff, all the Tom Clancy stuff, like, Vegas, all the Rainbow Six stuff. It's not so much even the killing and the shooting that's our thing, it's the teamwork. We're really, like, and I guess this sounds silly, but it's really one of those things where it's like, okay, here's an example of how people can work together. And we always know when we had bigger groups playing with us who was going to get killed first because they broke from the team plan. And we also feel guilty when we say, I've got your 6, and I turn around and we get shot from the 6, and I go, that's my bad. Right? The responsibility of it. So it's like a little company. It's like, okay, how do these people, what roles do these people play? And who is going to be team leader? And who's gonna be, the guy that's protecting us, who doesn't get as much of the action, but is so important. And it's just a great social experiment. So we enjoy the co-op rather than getting online and just shooting random kids. If you want to see me out-frag some 15-year-old punk online, I'll do it with my left hand. You know what I mean? I got my Atari 2600 in its box with 50 games. I've got a head-to-head football. I've got my first, I've been gaming forever. That's not what I need to prove. What I need to prove is, can these 4 strong-minded individuals work together to accomplish something? And if they were sports fans, we'd do it with a football game, but they're not. Only one of them is. So it's got to be,
So you mentioned Borderlands 2. Are you excited for the new pre-sequel? It's on the moon.
That would be cool. We're about to. We also play Gears a lot, and I just did a con with John.
DiMaggio?
Yeah, John and I are huge. We're both Jets fans, and he's from Jersey. And we spent a lot of time crying. No, but I had a great time with him, and of course, he's in gears, and so I'm like,
so did you have your little freak out?
yeah, so no, it just was cool. But we're big Gears fans too.
Chris Johnson's gonna make you cry some more.
Yeah, I know. No, just you watch. He's gonna actually help us win the AFC Championship. You'll be like, well, why'd you leave Tennessee?
We also got Michael Vick.
Well, yeah, you take Michael Vick, Chris Johnson, and then you got Chris Ivory in the backfield. You don't know what we're going to do. We're going to run, we're going to throw. You watch out.
Yeah, if this were 2008, you guys would be set.
All right. How many rings do the Titans have?
Because I'm a 49ers fan, they have
we have one ring.
Yeah.
It was something the mom gave to us.
No, I root for the Titans when they're not playing the Jets. Yeah. Because I like pain.
You gotta double down on
That's right. Why not? I can't ever root for a winning team.
Well, you can always root for the Predators. It's just the
They're
same.
not really a winning team.
I know. If he's wanting pain, it's the Predators.
No. I grew up in New York, so there's a couple. Got my Rangers because the Islanders are not a real hockey team. And then of course I've got my real team, the New York the Brooklyn Nets, because I've got that's my hometown. I finally got a basketball team, and that's the real deal. So there you go. There's some sports break.
All right.
So being a big Clancy fan, how did you feel when he passed away?
I liked his games.
Wow. Hardcore.
I mean, it's sad when anybody passes, but I mean, but hey, he had a nice life, he had a nice career. That's good. I still play his games.
So the two real questions for your gaming.
Yeah.
How much smack talk do you guys talk when you're online?
Well, we only play co-op mission-based stuff. We don't play against other people.
How much smack do you talk to me?
No, we're online,
Yeah.
but we only play against the AI.
Okay. And what is your role in the fort?
I'm team leader.
Your team leader? Hands down.
Well, let's just say I'm usually like when we're playing Borderlands, I'm the commando. One of the other guys is like the sniper.
So you're in there fist blazing, guns blazing?
No, I'm not Rambo at all. No, we have a strategy.
Okay.
But we all discuss it. Everybody's got their own input, but it definitely falls into place. But I think if the four of us sat down for like a business meeting, that's how it would be. And we all work together as well. The fun part is that Mark, who plays the biggest dude in Borderlands with us, his other job when he's not a voice actor is he's a minister, and so there's no profanity from him. But the three of us are and no, he deals with it, and it's fine and it's fun. But he's also he's very good at just whatever you guys want to do is good with me. Like Mark, what do you want to do? Should we go down this way or this way? Whatever's it's fine with me. And it's like
Useless opinion.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. And then he also falls asleep. Because we play late at night, his character will be like, banging into the wall. And we're like, Mark. And it's like, Mark's asleep.
I guess it could though, because you don't have any 2-2s, so you got 2 versus 1. He goes with whoever's winning.
That's right. No, well, we usually agree, and that's why we played together for so long. No, it's great. I love it. We call ourselves the Vidiots.
Like,
Yeah.